I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Hello? Perfect. These chairs were a little hard for a short person like me. I'm like, so hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Hayley Blum. I lead U.S. Business Development for SailGP. For those of you who do not know what SailGP is a global sailing racing property that races all around the world on the world's fastest catamarans in iconic destinations. I am here with Jessica John, Chief Strategy Officer of Regent Seven Seas Cruises, and Shergul Arshad, who is Head of North America for the Aston Martin Formula One team. Thank you both for being here. I know you guys have a crazy busy weekend ahead, so taking the time to talk to us today. I'm really looking forward to moderating this panel as there's a lot of similarities with SailGP and F1 being a high-speed racing property, and Regent Seven Seas Cruises with on-water luxury experiences. I really want to dive into your newly announced partnership. Sounds super unique. So I'll start with some questions around that. Shergul, let's start with you. What does the Aston Martin Formula One team look for in a brand partner, and how did you and Regent Seven Seas Cruises kind of get together and start ideating around this partnership?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you to Brand Innovators for having us here, and Pearl Tam in particular. Uh, I think, to date this back actually is a year ago, and Peter Spartan, who's with our team, the only other U.S.-based employee for our 800-person team, which is everyone else is in England. But we're Team North America here. Peter had a past working actually with Norwegian, so he had connections into Regent, and we hosted Regent at the Miami Grand Prix. And I think what made the potential partnership and the synergy and everything kind of really work well together is when people think of Formula One, obviously they think about, the 10 different teams and the fact that we're in 20 countries, and there's the Netflix series of Drive to Survive, but each team has its own distinct identity. And ours starts really with Aston Martin. So Aston Martin is a 111-year prestigious luxury car that has had an iconic past from James Bond to right now with Formula One. And it is the most aspirational car brand in the world. It's been ranked number one above Rolls-Royce, above Ferrari, and everyone else. So, last night, as a small microcosm of that, we were at the opening of the Aston Martin residences in Miami. It's this spectacular new building, and everything about Aston Martin has a quality, a prestige, and really a powerful image, which is reinforced with the Formula One side because we have beautiful looking cars, but also the prestige and power. And now we have a brand new technology center and campus, and we have a lot of innovation happening. But brands who are associating with that team are getting a immediate kind of rub-off effect of working with Aston Martin and all the positive attributes. The marriage with Regent was almost instant in that their customer base, and I'll let Jessica dive into a little bit more of that, but really mirrors the customer base of an Aston Martin fan, but also car owner potentially, and everyone that all the brand values of the two brands stand for. And without sort of stealing more of Jessica's thunder, I mean, there's Regent and all the luxury that transcends is we've been able to leverage each other's brands in the beginning of this partnership, and there's a lot more coming, which we'll get to in the later part of the questions. But hand it over to Jessica.
Yeah, I teed up a bit, but what intrigued you most about Formula One, but particularly the Aston Martin Formula One team?
Yeah, so when the team first started talking about a year ago, I'd actually not joined Regent yet. I worked for our parent company, and so some of the members of our marketing team had been talking. They've been thinking about this, and it was one of the first things they pitched to me when I took the job and moved over to Regent. And to be completely fair, at first I was like, no way, guys. We don't do big awareness plays. This is a sponsorship. This isn't something that we do. We're an ultra luxury cruise line. We have a small, very targeted database that we want to get to, that ultra high net worth individual. It doesn't make sense for us to do a big sports partnership. Then you started kind of peeling the layers back, and Shergul talked about it a little bit, but what really intrigued us about the Aston Martin F1 team was the fact that you were getting Aston Martin and F1, right? So F1 resonated really, really well for us because we are a travel company, right? We take people to explore the world. So that global aspect of being able to say, hey, we're in this country, on this continent, this day. These are the cruises that you can do, that you can take to be able to see these wonderful places. We have guests from around the world, so knowing that they have a fan base in all these different areas was really intriguing. And then the Aston Martin brand, very much, as Shergul said, I co-sign the I guess brand recognition that they have, and the quality, the luxury that people think, and it's very aligned with us in the sense that it's Aston Martin is a little bit more of that quiet, more understated luxury, not the flashiest person. We always say like the Ferrari and the McLaren is not the crowd that we usually have on our ships, right? It's really much more of that more modern, just more understated traditional luxury that we sell on our cruises. So love that aspect. And then when we even started thinking about the partnership itself, initially in my head, I went to broad scale sponsorship, like logos on the car and logos on the shirt. That was one aspect, right? Which was a great aspect. We all love to see our logo wherever we could possibly get it. And so it was a bigger awareness play, but then there was elements of a partnership where we're really working together to try to create experiences. So voyages that are themed to be Aston Martin F1, pre and post land programs. So we usually, when we take people on cruises, they might come a few days early. They go see the factory. They go get picked up in an Aston Martin and do a scenic drive along, coastline in France, right? Things like that we can actually offer, that when you think about our guest who has everything already, what can we give them that's different? What's that once in a lifetime type of experience or moment? There were so many elements that we came up with. I think we brainstormed literally for a year of different ideas of, we just couldn't stop, right? Oh, we could do this, we can do that, we can do this. There was just so much that there felt like there was no ceiling. And then the last aspect was you do get celebrity brand ambassadors as well. And we all know like corporate partnerships work a little bit better when you have a face to it. And when you actually have these drivers that have a following that people really know, especially after Drive to Survive, right? Which, at least for the North American base, put a face to these people, and now you really want to know if Fernando dated Taylor Swift. Like, you want to know, right? It's actually driving some interest there. Those elements, it really just felt like a unicorn to me. I don't usually get one partnership that gives me that many different things at once.
And definitely like a successful partnership, I think, comes from that collaboration process and building it, together from the start. So you touched on it a little bit, but Shergul, from this partnership was just announced in February. What has the partnership looked like so far with it being so new, but what are all the exciting things kind of upcoming from an activation standpoint?
Yeah, so we are thrilled because, again, from our job, there are teams out there that really view these as logos and ticket packages and off you go. The fact is, the activation opportunities and being able to extend our brand, a lot of our marketing is done through our partners, the logos you see on here. That fuels a lot of the interest from fans, and so one of the coolest things that's going to be upcoming, and we don't have all the details. We've got an event coming up at the end of May where we're announcing the details. But as Jessica started to tease out, we are going to be doing a spotlight cruise where, for an entire period of time, that was vague enough. Period of time where the entire cruise and sailing will be themed Aston Martin. We are going to have driver appearances. We're going to have folks that work on the technical side and then the executive side being part of that sailing. And it's
we're going to get the car on the ship.
We're going to get the car. We're going to get the branding, merchandise. So we think it's the type of thing where, again, these are two premium brands. The customer base from Aston Martin, again, you may not be able to buy a $300,000 car, but a $20,000 cruise line is a lot more affordable vacation. I think also the passion that we can generate, I think was mentioned earlier, Dom was just saying, we've got fans all around the world. they sail all around the world. So there's the opportunity to have these incredible moments on board. So I think I'm most excited about seeing a lot of these activations come to life. In our paddock club, so at every big race, we're going to have representatives from Regent with sort of beautiful imagery and video screens, sort of showing the luxury cruises and what people can be part of. And representatives on hand will be having gifting opportunities, but a lot of that kicks off this weekend. And then, as mentioned, so stay tuned for details around some of the spotlight cruises.
Yeah, and those are the experiences, and then across all of that, obviously, there's the storytelling, right, and how we talk about what we do together on our social channels, and all of that is still ramping up, right, because we did announce in February, but our whole campaign was essentially around these once in a lifetime moments, right? So whether on land or at sea, how do we bring those synergies together? And we saw so many of those, even just the way the team comes together. And there's 800 plus people that come together to make this one race happen. It's very similar to what we have when you have a cruise line, and all of the crew can turn the whole ship down in one day, and they work like a machine almost, right? Where everyone has their piece and they can come together. There's the moments of pride. There's the moments of just joy, of exploration, all of that. That's how we're going to keep the story going, because we can tie it into these are things that they deliver once in a lifetime moments for their guests, and then we do the same thing for ours.
Yeah, and speaking of synergies, I mean, just like the last panel, we've got Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, and we somehow are getting along even today. So it's all working well.
I'm hanging on to last year. So.
And from I know the storytelling aspect and audience aspect, do you find that the markets in which the races happen also help with kind of amplifying that partnership element for Regent?
Yeah, it definitely does, right? Because they're all places that we visit. They're all places that people get very excited. I think it's not only the places where the races are, but even, for example, our drivers, like Fernando Alonso is Spanish, right? And Pedro de la Rosa is from Spain. So we get this huge boost. You can see all the leads are coming from Spain. Like everything is coming from there because they're so excited about it. But it does help us tell a story. Like, for example, we have culinary arts kitchens on our ships. So depending on where the ships are going to be in the world, depending on what race is going on, we're going to theme what you're going to make in the culinary arts kitchen to dishes that are from that area. There's just so many different ways that we can make it unique because of the fact that we have all of these different places that we go to and we can tie it back.
And with the partnership being so unique, and I'm sure you've thought about this before the partnership, but from a measurement standpoint, how are you measuring the effectiveness of the partnership with it being so unique and not just, awareness or marketing?
Yeah, we are, again, going back to, we traditionally, when we market, everything is lower, right? Where all of it is about conversion and bookings for us. So it was a little tricky in the beginning for us to think about, okay, well, the awareness part of it, how do we measure? Obviously, you'll do that through brand lift studies, things like that. But at the end of the day, for us, what we consider success is bookings. And how can we track that? So every activation that we do, anytime we do something, we try to make sure that we're able to link and track it. We use promo codes whenever we can because that helps us tie to bookings. It takes a little longer, right? There's more conversion associated with it, but we have a process by which we do that. And so it always has to come to be someone actually sailing on our cruise, right? And not in 10 years or 20 years. It is typically 180 days to 360 days how we get a consumer in. That's when we start to see and we expect conversion on it. I'll say we did our partnership announcement in February, and we went to our CEO the next day and we told him, look how many impressions we got and how many leads we had. And he's like, it looks like there's only 3 bookings. I'm like, it's been 12 hours. It's been 12 hours. So that's how we think about it. It's always about getting people onto the ship.
And I think this is where the power of the F1 audience. So if they had gone directly to Aston Martin, which is obviously the name that is driving the excitement on the overall branding scale, there isn't a marketing vehicle and an audience that can draw in the eyeballs so when Jessica posed the challenge of, hey, we need X number of bookings out of this, and how can we make that work, right? We have an incredible marketing team and data to support all kinds of conversion metrics off of an Instagram post or one of the other social media channels or stories that we might be running and PR and trackable links. All of that is made possible by the scale of this sport, right? So I mentioned this earlier, but pre-Drive to Survive in North America, there was maybe 10 million fans to the sport, and now there's over 100 million self-selected Formula One fans. These 100 million people, that's the U.S. alone. Globally, there's 1.5 billion people watching Formula One. The average race is getting 70 million TV viewers, okay? So that's like 24 races, 24 Super Bowl size audiences. So these Super Bowl events that are happening in Singapore, in Melbourne, and Grand Prix here in Miami, it is like having the Super Bowl this week, right? But except it's not one day and for 60,000 people. It's actually a 3 and even 4 day event, all week event, and our friends from the Miami Grand Prix are over there, and this is probably, you'll host a Super Bowl as Miami does every 5 to 7 years. It's not going to garner the same type of economic impact as this race. But also from a fan perspective, what does all that do? So as fans follow us on different channels, that gives us a database that has grown to 27 million people. So for Regent to be able to tap into 27 million people, that's a very valuable way to then back into number of clicks, number of conversions, number of bookings.
I do want to shift focus a bit into the marketing side, as you mentioned, the global audience. I'm interested in hearing your perspective on how does the Aston Martin Formula One team navigate the complexities of marketing to a global audience that has, a wide array of consumers and fans for the team?
I mean, we have about 6 or 7 different customer segments that we try to focus on, not always simultaneously. There's different pockets of segments, and typically that ranges very differently by where you are in the world. So as just mentioned, the United States, it's a new fan base that their history of Formula One really starts about 6 or 7 years ago. There's maybe some iconic movies and flashbacks to Senna or stuff like that. But by and large, the fan base is new. So it's really a lot less brand loyal to one of the 10 teams, which creates a great opportunity to go out there and market and seize fans and color things green. Like this week in Miami, our social media has been all about taking iconic Miami spots and turning them green. And so that's been one fun way. Yesterday we had a truck going around with a see-through box container in the back, and the race car was in there. And it's just stopping by South Beach and all kinds of cool places, and it's just building fan momentum. In Austin earlier, I guess the end of last year, we had a campaign all around female race fans. So earlier today there was a panel all about the popularity of female and race cars. So we find the U.S. in particular extremely excited about this opportunity, and globally we've been able to lead the story in many ways with Jessica Hawkins, who is our female driver. She's the only woman to have raced in a F1 car in the last decade. She not only did it last year to a lot of media excitement and was on Good Morning America and ESPN and BBC and Sky Sports. This year, took it to a whole new level. She raced in the streets of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, did a donut at the end and spinning out and jumps out with excitement. In 2018, women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Now, here we are, the Aston Martin brand leading the charge with a female race car driver spinning through the streets of Riyadh. And so being able to tell that story, like last year in Austin, we really leaned into the female demographic and audience and the popularity we have. And through Jessica and through some of the other, now we have Tina Hausman as our F1 Academy driver, the popularity. What that does, sort of selfishly speaking too, is it opens up a whole new pocket of brands that potentially had viewed it as, okay, well, it's male drivers, and what are you doing? You know, the reality is we have the highest amount of female fans as a sport. It's something in the U.S. It's like 47% are female fans. It's incredible. So already you had a female watching audience. Now you've got the type of thing that a luxury brand or a cosmetics brand or a demographic that maybe was only trying to reach female is now can look at this in a vein that wasn't there before.
That was really important to us too, because our buyers, essentially the person who makes that decision for the cruise, is actually 50% male and female. So it's not like clothing where the women make all the decisions and order it for you. It is very much split. So having that side of it where it caters to both, and that was something that we thought about as well. And the fact that they did have female drivers, that they were pushing that message, helped us with, you know, I guess your first perception of male drivers. It's a very male sport. But it really isn't when we dived into the numbers for Aston Martin, and we felt really comforted knowing there were so many female fans, they were getting into it, and they were being supported and having that path forward.
It's such a cool story with Jessica. We talked about that earlier. I was like super impressed. And I know from my personal experience, I'm the one who's always booking the travel. My husband would never. So yeah, it is important. Right. But so prior to the panel, we discussed how this kind of new luxury consumer is, you know, coming to the forefront. How does Regent, you know, reach that new luxury consumer? What is the strategy, just from a travel perspective?
Yeah, I think part of that is what we're doing here with Aston Martin, right? But we have very much seen, and it exacerbated during COVID over the past few years, this completely different version of luxury depending on who the person is and what their demographic is. And it's very clear and when you look at different generations. So what the baby boomers think of as luxury, not necessarily the same thing as what a Gen X is going to think about luxury. So on our ships, we call this, and I was telling them earlier, it's like the people who think jeans are acceptable at dinner and the people who don't think jeans are acceptable at dinner. Very much and it is if you look at our social pages, anything, it is very stratified, and you are a jeans person or not a jeans person. And it's just that notion of what did you view as luxury? Is that the white glove butler service where you put on a tuxedo and you go to dinner, or is luxury having the choices that you want, not feeling like you need to perform and dress up, but just wanting to going out there, experiencing things, like living every moment to the fullest. There's a big stratification. Right now, what we kind of see is we're having to cater and market to both of those things. So we also have segments, right? We have personas, the traditionalists, we have the refined rejuvenators, we have next generation jet setters. And when you think about the jet setters, they want the experiences and the destinations. The traditional people want to be the people who don't get off the ship. They just want the service. They want the hospitality. They want caviar with their breakfast in their room. That's the type of different markets that we're catering to. It's tough right now, and being able to talk to two different sets of luxury at that point. But what we're doing is things like partnerships. Obviously, this helps us in the sense of, you know, the next generation would be maybe more interested in this, but the traditionalists still love the Aston Martin, the Aston Martin aspect of it, right, instead of the F1 one. We're also doing things like when we design new ships, so we have a growth profile of new ships. We're trying to just make sure we have more variety, right? So we definitely have the fancy French restaurant, but do we have more casual venues? Do we have more opportunity for people who maybe want to enjoy something different? And that's just not something we really thought about. If you think about luxury cruising even 10 years ago, you would think everybody wanted that French restaurant and you were all going for that and you wanted dinner at a certain time. And now some people want to just eat in their rooms or just grab something quick after a short excursion, and they want to prioritize the time out there exploring the world instead of, you know, indulging in more like material luxuries.
Super interesting. I do want to leave time for questions in the room. If anybody has questions. Yeah.
Just picking up on that last point, does that lead you someday to actually have to deliberate product and have entirely separate offerings for those audiences, or can you bring them together harmoniously in one ship?
I think we can bring them together still, right? Because of the fact that our ships are unique in that you have the product and then you're moving from place to place, right? So the people who want the product themselves, we can still have that on a ship. they want to stay on. They're the people who won't get off in port, right? And you can still have, especially on the service side, it's much more service oriented for them. So as long as your crew is still making them feel great, as long as they're getting those experiences in the restaurants, the other side of it will just be marketing to them differently. Like, hey, look, the side that you can experience is you're going to go to 10 different places in a matter of 10 days, and you don't have to drag your luggage onto EasyJet or whatever else. You just pack and unpack once in your beautiful suite and come home and go see the world. So I think it's the product is there that you can stratify it. It's more about how we speak to the consumer that's becoming harder. And there is a little bit of product difference. I would say we have some ships that are smaller and some ships that are bigger. So the smaller ships kind of cater a little bit more towards that guest who, maybe just wants that traditional luxury because they don't want as many options. They don't need to go as many places. They want to know every single crew member on the ship. They tend to choose the product that's a little bit different than the other, but not huge changes.
I love the idea that you have a bunch of Formula One fans on a cruise ship. So much of what I see in watch parties in America with new fans is people are trying to understand which race should I go to, or where should I stay, or what should I do.
Right.
I'm wondering how many of the folks that you have now on your ships do you intend to sort of cater to as a Formula One audience, and maybe speak to how to grow that maybe within that community on the ship.
Yeah, so catering to it, at least right now, we started out with one spotlight voyage a year is how we're kind of thinking about it. And we want to dip our toes in and see what the appetite is. But then even beyond that, where we can get into these more curated programs, it's going to still be a small percentage of your ship that you're going to be targeting for this, in part because you want to still maintain the exclusivity aspect. You want to create those experiences that somebody wants to pay a little bit more for. But broadly speaking, I mean, again, you get a lot of Formula One fans still, right? So even if they're not booking it just because they're Formula One fans, there are so many of them out there that you can then give a little bit of an edge to Regent. So we do watch parties on board. We have some things that are themed that are not like your whole experience is centered around it, but it's an added benefit, right? It's a reason why you choose Regent over another luxury cruise line.
I get to ask you this question in Vegas. I know the sponsors will certainly appreciate it as well. How are we going to beat Red Bull and get Aston?
I got a great answer, right? It's so
He's gonna steal
in
the car.
2026.
I'll steal the car.
In 2026, we have the Honda engine exclusive to the Aston Martin team. Now, for those of you that are race fans, you'll know that Honda has been inside Red Bull. So Red Bull, we're basically ripping the heart right out of Red Bull and plugging it right into our car. So there's your answer, the short form answer. No, but one thing I just wanted to also add on to that, we do represent the most unique opportunity, not just within the 10 teams in Formula One, but we think in all of sports marketing. To your point about different segments and different, this is a high-end luxury cruise partnership, right? We also are partners with TikTok. We launched Fernando Alonso on TikTok, and he's gone viral with all kinds of different videos he's done. Hugo Boss as a clothing line. But brands that have sort of saddled up to Aston Martin immediately get a premium quality bump in perception. We also have this innovation angle that we've been pushing. We're the only new campus that's happened in the last 20 years in Formula One. So, any technology or forward-thinking brand, what we're doing with females in motorsports and diversity and inclusion and STEM initiatives is only happening with Aston Martin, not happening in any of the other 10 teams of the type of scale it's happening at. So we also happen to have, as you were mentioning earlier, drivers from Monaco and Spain and Canada. We just signed a U.S. racer, Jack Crawford. So we've got the diversity around the world as far as fans, and so the programs that we can craft for any type of sponsor, really are unique in all of sports.
Amazing. I believe we have a networking break, but I did want to mention if you want to connect with them, I would do it now as you guys are off to the races, so to speak, starting this evening. So, but thank you again. It was really great.